You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. Since we last spoke, Manny Benuelos, Ryan Cordell, Matt Skoll, Ryan Goins, outright of the minors, became free agents. Alcides Escobar went to Japan. Carlos Rodon, Ryan Burr, Michael Kopech added back onto the 40-man roster because they had to. So did John Jay, but he becomes a free agent. Ivan Nova, Ross Detweiler, Hector Santiago, Jose Abreu all become free agents. And then Jose Abreu tendered a qualifying offer. Oh, and Wellington Castillo is gone in a trade for a minor leaguer. That means nothing.
They found the most White Sox way in the world to, once again, they do the right thing the wrong way.
They do the right thing wrongly.
And we've both been in Facebook arguments about this.
Okay, so we'll
get into it.
I'm gonna sum that up real quick, okay?
Okay.
So, and then you could just jump in and give your 2 cents, so we'll move right past it, because it's already old news when you look at everything else that's going on right now with the free agent market, which I hope the hot stove is just pumping this year, because it was so difficult to watch last year. So here's what happens. The White Sox have the option to just buy out Wellington Castillo for $500,000 and say, be gone. Instead, what the White Sox do is they trade Wellington Castillo and $250,000 in international bonus signing money to the Texas Rangers. They did the same thing with Nate Jones.
Yes.
And we said the same thing when they did it with
Nate Jones. Now, the Nate Jones thing was a lot more. It was $1 million at that point.
Yes. So in the end, what they did this year is they've given up Nate Jones and Wellington Castillo to, and also have given the Rangers $1.25 million in international signing money.
Now, what happens is, I'll jump in. What happens then, the second the ink is dry on the page, what do the Rangers do, Chris?
They release both of them.
Yeah, they buy out they buy out Wellington Castillo's contract for $500,000.
Okay, so what happens is that the Rangers paid like real cash to gain more international signing pool bonus money so that they can go out and get more guys.
Now, the White Sox are going to frame this, Chris, if it comes up, which it probably won't, because I would bet that most of you didn't notice this, but the White Sox, when put to the task about this, are going to use the excuse, oh, well, we weren't really too crazy about the international free agent pool this year, okay? That is bull. That is bull. This is a penny-pinching move. Make no mistake about it. It walks like a duck. It talks like a duck. It's a penny-pinching move.
If one day the Rangers pay him back, and this was all like, hey, you need it this year, we don't need it this year, so why don't you take the money and we'll get the money in a couple of years. It's the only way you could justify this move, because otherwise all you're doing is just being cheap. Now, roster Armageddon occurred.
Yes.
Okay. The White Sox did exactly what we said they were going to do. They had to take the 4 guys that were on the 60-day DL. They had to bring them back into the fold. They had to release a bunch of guys.
The 40-man roster is now down to 32.
We sent out a poll on Twitter and Facebook, and it wasn't like any names were on there. I just put up the 32 guys still waiting on the 40-man roster. And I said, if you assume that you're going to, with those 8 spots, you're going to protect 6 or 7 guys. And if you only protect 6 guys that you need to bring on before the Rule 5 draft that aren't on the 40-man roster, then you're keeping 1 spot for flexibility or to grab a guy in the Rule 5 draft, or you're just keeping 7. And the 8th spot is so you can re-sign Abreu. That brings you right back up to 40, which means when you go out and get yourself the DH, the right fielder, the 2 starting pitchers you need, and possibly, let's say a bullpen guy and a middle infielder, you don't know what, if they decide they want to go crazy and sign 6 guys instead of 4 in the offseason, because they really should go do that, who are the guys you would cut from the list that are still on there? Now, I sent this poll out, and I have created the Sox in the Basement roster kill list. These are guys on the current 40-man roster.
It's like a Hollywood death
It's a kill
pool.
list.
It's a Hollywood death pool, whatever you call it.
These are the guys on the 40-man roster that, consensus-wise, people who responded on Twitter and on Facebook who answered what we said have all said, yeah, drop this guy. Who do you think left on the 40-man roster was the number one person? Only 2 people did not put this guy's name on the list. They should be jettisoned from the 32-man list, or the first guy at the top of the kill list that's going to go when the White Sox start making moves.
I'm looking at the 40-man right now. Well, I know I can't speak for my fellow White Sox fans, but I mean the names that stick out to me on this list.
Yeah.
Sanchez. Palka.
Right.
Zavala.
Okay.
The
number one guy, Dylan Covey. Everybody said get rid of Covey. In fact, the top 4 guys in this order that White Sox fans by consensus said drop them off there. Is the moment you find guys you want to bring on this team in free agency, these are the guys you're going to get rid of. Covey, Yolmer Sanchez, Thaigo Vieira, and Daniel Palka were the top 4. Okay. And if you go further into the list and you go and get extra guys, Carson Fulmer, Ruiz, and Zebby Zavala.
Okay.
That's the top of the kill list. I mean, there were votes for other guys. I mean, there was one guy that said get rid of Zach Collins. So there's some like, well, I don't know why you would do that. But I was like, okay. I put on the list. There's a couple people that want to get rid of Adam Engel. I think that people are confused with what Adam Engel is. He's a terrible everyday starting player. He is the perfect 26th man because the rosters go from 25 to 26 this year, where you can bring him in for speed and defense in the late innings. You want Adam Engel on your team. He could be a role player for years on your team. You're going to have a hard time finding a guy that does what he does that you're getting at the value you're getting Adam Engel for. They're not getting rid of him. That'd be crazy. Hey, thanks for listening. If you're into podcasts and you like beer, craft beer reviews, craft brewery tours, fatherhood, drunken singing, outrageousness, late 1990s morning radio, trapped 20 years later at a 9-foot homemade oak bar, the original Broadcast Basement podcast is still available everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at broadcastbasement.com. And it is still 30 minutes of good in a world of dumb, with a new on-demand episode every Thursday. Maybe listen to it after this show, which continues now.
Hey, Chris and Dave, great show. This is Frank. Free agent. We got to sign Abreu, 2 years, $30 million. I like to sign Tanner Rourke, 1 year, $10 million. Zach Wheeler, 3 years, $60 million. That's our 2 pitchers. I would try to get Puig, 1 for 11 or maybe 2 for 20. He's another Cuban. They love them Cubans. Okay. And this is all, if Grandal opts out, naturally we need him, 4 years, $80 million. But if he doesn't, I want to get Houston's catcher, Maldonado. He's only getting $2 million. Give him 3. And then the last pipe dream here is Strasburg. He's got 4 years left for $100 million, but he's paid 25, 15, 15, and then the last year of his deal is 45. So I would give him 4 years at 120, but I'd pay him 40, 40, 20, 20. So he gets his money up front. Comes to around $141 million if we got everybody. So we have around $165 million payroll, which Jerry can afford. He gets a free stadium. Keep up the good show, guys. Talk to you soon.
Players have now declared free agency, and as of Monday, teams had to decide who they were going to offer a qualifying offer to. Now, this has changed in recent years with the new CBA, or the most recent CBA. It took a while for this to go into place, but this is how it works. Teams can offer a player a certain amount of money. The qualifying offer this year came in at $17.8 million. If you offer a guy a qualifying offer, he can still negotiate with other teams. He can still negotiate with you. And for 10 days, he has the option of just taking that 1 year at $17.8 million.
And just to clarify, yes, I was just going to clarify. That's a 1 year at $17.8
million. Once a guy's given a qualifying offer, he can never be given one again. And if a guy came halfway through the season onto a team, he can't be given a qualifying offer either. 10 guys who are Major League Baseball free agents were extended qualifying offer. One of them is Jose Abreu. So let's approach Jose Abreu first here.
Okay.
Jose Abreu at the qualifying offer. he now can take that offer for 1 year, which I don't think is a big deal to the White Sox. I mean, is it going to sting Jerry a little bit? He's paying a guy that much money for 1 year. Yeah, it'll sting a little bit. But in the long term, that's not a bad thing because Andrew Vaughn is waiting. There's a lot of people that believe he could be up as early as September, and he's the future first baseman for the team.
And there are people out there that subscribe to the theory that you're getting diminishing returns on Jose Abreu.
He had an under 2 WAR. He was basically just a regular old player. He had an under 2 WAR last year if you look at him sabermetrically.
Okay.
But he brings a lot to the team. He brings a lot of leadership, and I want Jose Abreu back. You see what I'm saying?
Again, the average was not there for Jose Abreu, but again, the power numbers were. I mean, the home runs and the RBIs, Jose Abreu did, as far as that is concerned, Jose Abreu did last year what Jose Abreu normally does. It's just the average was down.
He was very valuable to the White Sox.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that you're getting diminishing returns on Jose Abreu, but there will be people that will look at his age, and there will be people that'll look at the lower WAR and the lower batting average and be like, yeah, well, don't sign him to a long term because then you're going to be paying him at the back end of his career when he's not the player he used to be.
I think this just sets up the White Sox to work out a deal with him for 2 to 3 years. And it also makes him less valuable to teams that want to get him because now let's take a look at what happens if a team wants to go out and sign Jose Abreu, or really any of the guys except for one. Everybody's got the same draft pick compensation. They're of the 10 guys that were given qualifying offers that are free agents. You're giving up a second-round pick, and you're getting a pick after the competitive balance round B. Okay, so basically, early on in the draft, you're giving up a pick. Somebody else is getting a pick. Let's go through the guys that also have that same thing. Garrett Cole, Josh Donaldson, Marcell Ozuna, Madison Bumgarner, Will Smith, Zach Wheeler, Anthony Rendon, Steven Strasburg, and Jake Odorizzi, who, because he's from a smaller market team, he's actually a draft pick compensation that's even worse between the first round and competitive balance round A if he signs for over $50 million. Or if he signs for less than that, he's like everybody else.
This is the first time that I've heard that list. Now, what's interesting to me about that list of qualifying offers, that to me takes a lot of names off the board that a lot of people have been throwing around as potential free agent targets for the White Sox.
Here's the thing. The White Sox shouldn't care. You shouldn't care at this point. Give up your second round pick and there's an international for the White Sox based. Every team is split up. The White Sox are considered to be a team that's under the luxury tax threshold, and they don't receive revenue sharing because they're a major market team, even though they act like they're a small market team. So they've got to give up that second highest selection in the following year's draft, which is their second round pick, and $500,000 from their international bonus pool. So there's that bonus pool money again. They've got to give up another $500,000 of it after giving up $1.25 million of it. Now they got to give up another $500,000. That's where it becomes valuable to not give that stuff away, because now to sign one of these free agents, they need to give up even more of it.
Right.
So I still think you got to do it to go out and sign one of these guys.
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna.
Oh, they have to. Dave, they have to. I mean, what off the top of your head, give me a guy that you're like, oh yeah, he was a second or third round pick that's really blowing the doors off everybody for the White Sox. Like, when do we make great draft picks that this pick is going to be valuable to us?
No, we don't.
Give the pick up and get an established player that you need to go and get. So I'm just saying who's got one attached to them. Like, here's the thing. They're not going to go get Odorizzi, okay, because they're not going to give up too much for him. But I think they would take him off the list. They would say, well, we'd rather get Alex Wood.
Chris, we have a hard enough time getting the White Sox to just spend actual money on free agents.
They're going to spend money.
I don't believe it. But now when you add this caveat of you have to give up a draft pick, and you add this caveat of you have to give up bonus, you have to give up international signing bonus.
They don't care about international signing bonus money. That's obvious.
Apparently not.
They don't care about it. So if they don't care about it, then it shouldn't matter. So that's the thing. They've just demonstrated to me this week they could give a crap about international signing pool bonus money. They don't care. So if they don't care about it, just who cares if they give up another $500,000?
But that move was done, Chris, so they could save actual dollars. They could not stomach spending $500,000.
They're claiming that that's more money that'll be spent.
Yeah, but
So
it's not
spend the
going to
money.
be. Chris, you're excited about, here's the deal. You're
You're so negative.
You're excited about the hot stove. You turned on the stove and I'm just ignoring it. My house is going to burn down. I am not paying one bit of attention to baseball free agency this year because it's the thing of
That's nice. You're half of a podcast, the most listened to, downloaded White Sox podcast there is, and you're not paying attention to the hot stove.
They're not going to get anybody. They're not going to get anybody. They're going to get, they're going to get Johan Santana on his comeback tour.
Okay, you got to calm down about that.
Dude,
That's not happening.
Look, we have said it before. The White Sox are not players in free agency. They never have been. They never will be. Why is this year different?
Why don't you believe this? Here's the thing. Last year, they were players for Machado. They just cheaped out at the end. Okay? This year, they're not just targeting one guy. They've specifically said, Hans said, we need to get a right fielder. We need to get a DH. We need to get 2 starting pitchers. They have guys that developed. You got Moncada. You got Anderson's big year. You got Aloy's up. You're bringing Robert and Madrigal up. It's time.
I am not.
It's time. And
yes,
they know
Chris,
this. They know it's time.
You
think they're not going out and signing anybody.
No.
You honestly think that they're not signing anybody.
Not of note. Not of note.
Who's of note to you?
Any of the guys you just mentioned.
Okay, so you don't think that they're going to make a run at Zach Wheeler? You don't think that they'll make a run at Madison Bumgarner?
They will not. And if they do,
Marcelo Zuna, they won't knock on the door.
If they do, they'll call so they could tell their fan base, and so they could have the corporate podcast and all the Reinsdorf friendly media say, look, we're pursuing these free agents. They know that they are not going to be able to spend the money it takes to get a Madison Bumgarner or any of those guys.
But they should be.
Here.
We broke this down already. We broke down that they could still be below average in payroll at the major league level. They could still have a below average payroll and add 4 or 5 guys. They could still do that.
Yeah, but not top tier guys, Chris.
They could add these guys. They could add a Bumgarner and still end up below average in terms of payroll. They have plenty of money, David.
I really think
that you're taking this far too negatively.
No,
I think you're way too upset about this.
I am taking the guarded approach on this, which is I'll believe it when I see it. When I talk to White Sox fans, the general consensus when it comes to free agency is prove it. Prove it. Prove you're going to spend the money. I'll believe it when I see it. Those are the White Sox fans I talk to. Chris, you and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. You even said the same thing. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, no, I said I believe it when I see it when it comes to JD Martinez, which I said was a pipe dream. And what's funny is he decides he's going to stay with the Red Sox. And so he's not even available. So remember how that was getting pushed?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I had every media guy that was close to the White Sox was talking about how much Kenny Williams wanted to go get JD Martinez. And guess what? Scott Boras looked at his client and said, to be honest with you, the only team that's interested in you is the White Sox. And we know that ain't going to work out between me and them. And so why don't you just stay with the Red Sox? And that's like exactly how that conversation went down.
I'm sure.
He's not I was right. Everybody kept saying it. JD Martinez. We all knew that wasn't going to work out.
Right.
You have to take every Scott Boras client and cross it right off when you start looking at free agency.
Hey, Sox in the Basement. This is Matt from Flossmoor, Illinois. Just wanted to give you my postseason rundown of moves I think the Sox should make. Free agents, I want Mad Bum. I think, he's a lefty, big game guy. Go after him. 4 years, $88 million. If they swung and missed on him, I would take Zach Wheeler here. Even though he's a righty and we have a bunch of righties, I really like his upside. Number 3 would be Puig on a 2-year, $25 million deal. I think he'd put in a 3rd-year option of like $16 million. He's big. He hits for power. He's actually fast. He's got a cannon arm. Love him. Let's take a flyer on him. Super high upside guy, and he's Cuban. So I think he'd get along with the gang.
Remember, if you ever want to give us your ideas this offseason or comment on anything that's going on or something we said, 708-459-8406, 708-459-8406, 24/7, 365. Make the call. I got excited last night. See, I enjoy this. I know you're going to be negative, and
you are going to get excited, and then what's going to happen is on April 1st, when we have the old broken and bad free agents that we sign every year, and then they're off the team by May, You know, okay, here you go. Look at the free agent class last year the White Sox brought
They
in.
weren't
Besides
competing last year. They were in a rebuild, Dave. It was only year 3 of the rebuild.
Well, here's year 4 of the
Okay,
rebuild.
but there's the thing. They kept saying 2020. You can go back and find all the old tweets from everybody that reported on it. You can find all the stories about it. You can find Rick Hahn saying it out loud. You can hear Kenny Williams saying it out loud, 2020. And even though it didn't feel that way last year after we lost out on Machado, and even though it didn't feel that way last year when we're looking at Moncada and he hasn't developed and we don't know if Tim Anderson's ever going to be good anymore and we can't figure out who's going to be a pitcher on this team and Kopech's got his Tommy John, it should feel that way now that you can compete. I believe so much that the White Sox can and should compete that I added a Sox in the Basement t-shirt to the Sox in the Basement store. And I'm going with the hashtag compete. You could buy your hashtag compete Sox in the Basement t-shirt or hoodie, and you can go right now to soxinthebasement.com and click on Sox in the Basement stuff and go into the store. And I want to see these all over Sox Fest because hold them accountable. Like this is something that people should be saying now. Compete. We're done. We're done with the rebuild. Compete. With one loud voice. Compete. I expect them to compete. I have to expect them to compete. If I don't believe that they're going to compete and they're not going to do anything in the offseason, why am I even watching? I believe it.
All right.
Okay? I know you think my heart's going to get broken here, but I believe
know
it.
Your heart's going to get broken.
You're too negative. Look, there are guys that did not get
prove it.
qualifying offers given to them that I now add to my list of guys that are possible signings. Like, first of all, I said Alex Wood could be a nice back-end rotation guy. Julio Teheran is now out there for the Braves. He's a back-end rotation guy because his team decided not to pick him up. They've released him into the wild.
Okay.
And they've given him no qualifying offer because they're so deep on pitching. So those are two guys. Forget Jake Odorizzi. He's got that draft pick compensation. Either one of those guys I'm fine with, okay? So that fills one of my holes, the back end of the rotation.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to give you a right fielder that last night I got excited about. I thought so much outside the box on this. And some people think I'm crazy. You want left-handed. You want power.
Okay.
He's not a right fielder right now.
Okay.
But yesterday, his team decided they could live without giving him a qualifying offer. The New York Yankees attached nothing to Didi Gregorius.
Didi Gregorius
Yes.
in right field.
I want you to think outside the box here.
Okay.
Left-handed bat.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I don't think the White Sox will do it because they don't think outside the box. But left-handed bat with the ability athletically to go play in the outfield if you needed him to play in the outfield, but then would be able to come in and spell your players at second base and short. Could start the season even playing second base if you wanted to put Leury Garcia out in right field to give yourself an option until Nick Madrigal comes up. You can move him all over the place. You have so much flexibility. You have the problem that you want to have. So much talent that if somebody regresses, like if Anderson regresses all of a sudden, Didi could actually become the guy. He had Tommy John surgery and he had a half a season and didn't perform very well. But I'm not looking at last year. I'm looking at the 2 years before it, Dave. The 2 years before, if you take Didi Gregorius' average stats, and he's 30 years old going into this season, 326 average over the 2 seasons before 2019, an 812 OPS, 26 bombs, and a 3.9 wins above replacement. Now, everybody's talking about Cole Calhoun. Another guy has no qualifying offer attached to him who's a left-handed hitter you could put in right field. Calhoun's only hit 231 to that 326. His OPS is under 800. He's got a few more home runs, but his wins above replacement are 1.5 less than Gregorius. I would love for them to think outside the box and say, we're going to bring DD on. We're going to start moving guys around the roster. Every once in a while, DD's in right. Every once in a while, DD's filling in the infield. You could think outside the box here, and then you could go get yourself, because JD Martinez is gone, another outfielder like a Marcelo Zuna. Or even sign Cole Calhoun and have both of them to be able to move guys around. We need a DH, right? You could get 2 left-handed bats in here right now. Or you could bring in a good power right-handed bat, and like you could go get Ozuna. And if you decide you're not going to go after Ozuna and you want to stay away from qualifying offers, then there's one guy with a qualifying offer you could spend money on. You go get Mad Bum, or you can go get Zach Wheeler, who I see as the consolation prize to Mad Bum. Other people see it the other way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a realistic way you could go do this and get around qualifying offers and really only have to decide one guy with a qualifying offer and go get some other players. I like him as an outside the box thing. I know people are going to crucify me like that's a stupid idea. Why would you think that? He's a shortstop. He's a 30-year-old player. And how many times have you seen guys who are playing the infield to move to the outfield and have productive years? He can hit home runs. He comes from the left side of the plate. He's played on winning teams before.
It's interesting.
He brings you another dimension.
It's interesting. I'm not sure why the Yankees wouldn't extend a qualifying offer to him.
They didn't. Yasiel Puig. Everybody keeps saying, Yasiel Puig, I want Yasiel Puig. Puig is like a game and a half wins above replacement. And he's a right-handed hitter. And I know everybody loves the fire and the drive. And I get a kick out of Puig. I really enjoy watching him. But I would take Didi over him. I'd take Cole Calhoun over him in right field. There's a lot of guys I'd take over Yasiel Puig. Now, on the other hand, if the team signs him, I'm not going to be angry about it. I wouldn't be angry about a Puig signing. Would you be angry about a Puig signing? You keep saying that they're going to go get the bottom dwellers. He's more of a bottom dweller in free agency that you put in right field. Him or Corey Dickerson would be the low-end right fielder you would go get. So if you got one of those guys, would you be angry? Because here's the thing, your team is improving.
I mean,
what's the heart? Either one of those guys I'd be okay with, but you are like, nope, we're not getting anything of value.
They're not going to go after Puig because he's right-handed, though, and they are still madly
Grandal,
madly in love with this. We need left-handed power hitters.
Okay, what if you go and you get Grandal, and he's a lefty, and then you could add a right-handed outfielder, bat. Another guy who doesn't have a qualifying offer. We've talked about Grandal. That should be their target. So what if they go out and they get themselves Yasmani Grandal? That does not have a qualifying offer attached to him. You can go out and get Didi Gregorius. No qualifying offer attached to him. Or Cole Calhoun. Okay? Or even you end up with Puig or Dickerson.
I mean,
so now you've got your DH position taken care of. You're backing up your catcher position because McCann is weak, because you're not sure whether or not he's going to have the first half or the second half next year. And you want to give some versatility moving Collins around. You don't know how many bats you're going to be able to get him and where you want to move him and everything like that.
And and Collins is still an unknown anyway.
You add those guys in. You grab one of those back end starters that I said, like you can go get yourself an Alex Wood or Teheran. I hope I'm saying his name right, but I wasn't even expecting him to be a free agent, so I just read his name. I've never really taken the time to pronounce it right, but he's available out there. Okay? And now you filled in everything except that high-end front-end starter, and you haven't gone after anybody with a qualifying offer. So then go get Mad Bum or Wheeler and give up the second-round pick and the international signing bonus money that you don't care about because you've already shown it. So why is it so unrealistic to you? Because you're sitting here waving your hands around here at the bar and you're all aggravated about it, but it seems to me like that's very realistic. You don't find it to be realistic?
No, I don't.
Why?
I don't find that to be realistic.
You really think they're going to enter the season with a $70 million payroll?
I think if they had their way, they'd enter the season with less than a $70 million payroll, Chris.
Why would you go through all? Here's the thing. Why would you do 3 years of a rebuild and set your fan base up like this to destroy them this offseason and do nothing?
Because they've done it before.
And then, but you would. If you thought you lost people before, the place will have tumbleweeds blowing through it.
Anytime the White Sox have gone after a free agent, a top of the list, or even a mid-tier free agent that they've been wanting, all right, and then they don't get them because they offer them cheap lowball offers, what they then do is their spin machines kick right into high gear and they paint this guy as the bad guy. Look at what they did with Machado last year. It's we never really wanted this guy because he's lazy. He's not Johnny Hustle, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? The majority of the fan base believed it. Chris, I couldn't tell you how many arguments I got into on Twitter and Facebook that with people who are like, I don't want this guy, Manny Machado. He's a bum. I don't want this guy, Bryce Harper. He's a bum. We said it on the show. You don't like 6 WAR players? You don't like future Hall of Famers? The Sox spin machine kicks into gear, and then that's what they go with. And people buy it. It's going to be the same thing this year. I don't see why you have this optimism that this year in free agency is going to be like any other year that we in our 40 years of existence as White Sox fans have seen before. They've never done anything like this before. What makes you think they're going to do it now? And look, maybe I'm wrong, but you know what? Prove it. Prove to me that you are serious about spending money. Prove to me that you are going to be serious players in free agency and not just pawns or tools of Scott Boras that he uses to get his clients more money from another team. Prove it.
See, this is what I think you're doing, Dave. I think you're angry and you're disgusted, and I think you want to believe what you just said. But I also think you're saying it because you're hoping the White Sox are listening and they'll be like, screw that Dave Cohen, we're going to spend money.
I know. You know what's funny, Chris?
Like,
You know
I feel
what's-
like you're daring them. Like,
you
you're
know
the
what's
kid on the
hila-
playground, like, swing. Like,
know-
'cause you want to get into a fight. Like, I feel like that's what you're doing right now. You
know what's-
can't believe this.
You know what's funny, Chris? I actually know they're listening because last episode when we did our off-season calendar,
Yeah.
a day later, the corporate podcast. Here's your off-season calendar, White Sox fans. I know they're listening. So yes, White Sox, I am daring you. I think you are cheap penny pinchers, and I think the only thing that you're going to give me in free agency is a 39-year-old Johan Santana on his
Why
comeback
do you
trail.
think he's going back? Where do you get that from?
They signed Erwin Santana last
So
year, and
you
he
just think-
lasted 4
You
starts.
just think they need an old Santana on every team? Is that
They it's kind of like they are.
maybe
with-
they can bring in the guitarist Santana for a season.
Carlos. There is a Carlos Santana. No, it's like it's like how for a decade we just had to have an Alomar brother on our team.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
Who's an old guy that Kenny would want like right now?
Oh, I know. There's
Who's
so many
floating
of
around
them.
out there
Oh,
right now
God.
that you'd be like, Kenny's always wanted him, and he would just go out and just grab him right now and
Oh
bring him
man,
onto the
this
team.
is a tough one.
Maybe he goes out and gets Ben Zobrist. Maybe that's
There
the
you
old guy
go,
who does
Ben
it.
Zobrist.
Goes against Ben Zobrist.
That's what we need.
Socks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on socksinthebasement.com.